The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the City of Neenah Common Council meeting for Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. The first item on the agenda is the roll call. Please indicate your presence on your roll call device, and the clerk will also call the roll.
Alderman Boyette.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Hillstrom.
Here.
Lundrum.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Paulnow.
Here.
Here.
Ellis.
Here.
And Council President Borchert.
Here.
I'm sorry, I
I
can't
tried
sign
to
in.
indicate my presence, but it says I'm absent.
I'm not able to sign in.
Yeah, me either.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just not here. We're not present.
I'm here.
But take it off.
We'll get this all sorted out in short order.
I know.
Focus, focus.
Thank you, Clerk Nagel. I would like to ask Council President Borchert to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to entertain a motion to move the public forum up to the next item on the agenda.
So move. Second.
There's a motion and a second. We'll take a voice vote. All in favor of moving item number 4 up to right under where we are now, right under item number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. I would like to open our public forum portion of the meeting this evening. If there's anyone here who would like to speak on a topic of interest to the community and the council, we would welcome you to come to the microphone and give your name and residential address. And if you want to be speaking on any item, whether it is on the agenda or a separate item, we welcome you to come forward. So if there's someone here who would like to speak.
Hi, is it on? Great.
Yes.
Good evening. I'm Gordon Hintz, 1361 Washington Avenue, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I am candidate for Winnebago County Executive. I just wanted to come before you and introduce myself, talk a little bit about my background and why I hope to be working with you in Winnebago County going forward. I'm born and raised in Oshkosh. I live there now with my wife and 2 children. I've worked in government and public service for more than 20 years at the federal, state, and local level. Most recently, serving 16 years in the Wisconsin State Legislature, 4 years as minority leader, and 4 years on the State Joint Finance Committee. Given that I'm running for county executive and county services are often mandated by the state, I think that experience will be useful as county executive and working with the state. Before that, I worked at the local level as a management assistant and a budget analyst for the city of Long Beach. That was after earning my master's degree in public administration from UW-Madison. I think this background, both in budget, finance, and state and local government, makes me prepared for the operational and the political decision-making necessary to be an effective county executive. I believe in public service. I believe in public institutions. I believe in public employees. but I also believe in effective and efficient government. I don't believe in the status quo. I think we need to continue to be innovative, need to be open to change, and that's the kind of county executive I hope to be. When I was encouraged to run and ultimately decided to run, it was because I felt like we needed better communication. That included with the county board, where there's been a lot of dysfunction over agenda managing, roles, responsibilities, who's in charge. That's often, I think, got in the way of making good policy decisions. Communication with local governments, with whether it was the ARPA allocation or just trying to work together and coordinate on what we're doing, looking at functional consolidation of services. I was just frustrating to read about. Sometimes poor communication, sometimes no communication. But a lot of it is about communication with the public. I think county government suffers probably more than city government or school districts even, in that, for a lot of people, they don't know what county government does. And it's hard to build trust and have backing for the decisions that you're making if you're not engaging the public. And I've always been a huge believer in finding ways to engage the public so they're behind the decisions that you're making, so they know that they're invested in the plans that you're making. I've always, when I was in the legislature, had regular office hours, had town hall forums, had budget forums, did surveys, and found ways to try to engage the public so they knew that we were doing what we were doing. Like you, we're going to be living under tight levy limits. We're going to have tough long-term decisions on continuing to fund Parkview Nursing Home. Who knows what's going to happen with some of the cuts happening from the federal level as they trickle down with Medicaid and reimbursement and other issues. And we're going to need to, be as stable financially, possible. And we're going to need an accountable government to do it. So, I'm committed to doing those things. I think we do have some budget challenges on the transparency side. We had a $6.8 million budget deficit built in, yet to this last budget, our actuals always come in higher, and we still end up with a fund balance. But for 4 years, this has been happening, and we haven't come any closer to achieving, coming closer to predicting what our actuals are going to be. And I think there's some things that we need to be able to do to improve upon that, so we have some more predictability on the budget side. But I want all of you to know as well, as someone coming from Oshkosh, that Northern Winnebago County has to play a big role. I think with 36 board members representing urban, suburban, and rural areas, sometimes it's hard to steer the ship, but we really have to look at that. We have to look at tax-based growth for the county. We have to look at issues like housing from a county standpoint, because we have employers that work in our area that need things like workforce housing, and it doesn't matter which community they're in, and I think the county can have a role to play with the Industrial Development Board in partnering with local governments like Neenah to make that happen. So I hope to be a county executive for the urban, suburban, and rural areas, and I hope to have the opportunity to work with all of you after April 1st. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in the public forum?
Scott Becker, 1061 Green Acres Zine. I want to talk about the housing study. The housing study is an opportunity to attract people to our community, revitalize some of our neighborhoods by building infill new homes, converting older housing back into single-family homes, and be a welcoming city that we've been for generations. Right now, poverty is having a huge impact on our city. This housing study uses Neenah as a comparable to Wausau, which has the 21st highest poverty rate of a city in Wisconsin. It also uses Manitowoc, which is 24th. Wausau has 49.8% of its school children on reduced or free lunches. Manitowoc has 39. Both Manitowoc and Wausau have a poverty rate of 15% or above. Neenah's own poverty rate is twice as high as our next door neighbor, Fox Crossing, higher than Menasha, and the highest in the Fox Cities, according to reporting in the in our Fox Cities newspaper, the Neenah News. Poverty in both Winnebago County and the state of Wisconsin went down as Neenah's poverty went up. Violent crime, once unheard of here. Now in our community, we have just seen horrific things happen. From that horrible murder that happened a few blocks away here, to a person stabbed 18 times across the street from the police station, to several high-profile shootings. City services, once considered the best in the state, from twice weekly garbage pickup to daily weekday park and rec programming in every city park, have changed when Neenah had a very low poverty rate. Now city services are being cut back, from city park shelters not opening, police services being scaled back, to the hiring of more firefighters being turned down after 2 straight years of record calls, and longtime public work services like waste pickup being eliminated because of budgetary constraints. So, what should we do? The first priority should be reducing the poverty of our existing residents who have real economic needs that are not being met right now. We need to be working to get residents into housing options such as single-family homes, townhouses, condominiums, duplexes, that build financial wealth and security, and using the plentiful existing city-owned land around Neenah to build on these homes as a starting point. Apartments also need to play a role in housing, and I'm well aware of this, having worked directly for the Wisconsin Apartment Association and their lobbyist for over 10 years. Gary Goike, who is a former state senator from Oshkosh. In recent years, the city has approved more apartments than that were being proposed by the city's 2024 comprehensive plan. So future development need to be right locations with amenities like grocery stores, healthcare, financial institutions, pharmacies. These basic services are incredibly important for successful apartment development, and there's much research and much development on that. Finally, the housing market needs to be based looking at the whole Fox Cities ecosystem. Overbuilding of apartments or overbuilding of single-family homes will have a dramatic consequence to Neenah as a whole and as a community who's always been caring, because after all, we have Neenah with pride. Let's be the most creative, innovative, instead of simply doing plug and play and taking care of our residents to the greatest long-term good for all of Neenah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public forum?
Hello, I'm Lucas Ranke, 406 Haylett Street, Neenah, Wisconsin. I'm also here as representative of the Winnebago County Board. I represent District 6 here in Neenah. I'm here to update you all. Last night during our county board session, we voted to pass a strategic plan for the county for the first time. This plan was built with input from local members, county board members, community leaders. I know we reached out to members of Neenah. We didn't get a lot of responses on a lot of that, but back on the 2nd of March, we held a workshop to develop the pillars around the strategic plan. I'd like to give you a little bit of information around the pillars that we developed. They are housing, transportation, economic development, efficient government, and quality of life. Those are the things that we as the supervisors of Winnebago County have decided to focus on moving forward. The Neenah representatives of the board have decided to host a community session. We're aiming for late April. We are still setting dates where we will be inviting you all to offer feedback on our plan so that we can start to develop this moving forward in a way that partners best for both groups. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, again, Lucas Ranke, or your other Neenah reps. I'll be available around after the meeting if anybody has any questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Holt. I represent 418 Park Drive, Neenah, and I represent District 5, which is the downtown area of Neenah and Doty Island, and Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. I read through the housing assessment and really am encouraged by what I see, because I have evidence myself, having run for government positions in the past 6 years, of people who have been affording an apartment for example, 20 years. And all of a sudden during the pandemic, it changed ownership and the new landlord increased their rates 25%, and they had to leave Neenah in order to find affordable rental units. I've also known people who were offered jobs in the area and who were unable to accept those offers because they weren't going to make enough to afford housing, either a rental unit or a house. And so these problems are real in our community, and I hope you'll evaluate this and take action to resolve our housing shortages, both in rental units and in homes that are owned by our residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Sundstrom. I am the Director of Public Relations and Government Affairs for the Realtors Association of Northeast Wisconsin. Our association's business address is W6124 Aerotech Drive in Appleton. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak tonight regarding the housing study. First, I have to say that this study is very, very well done. I have read through it cover to cover. A number of our larger communities have taken this very important step as well in completing an in-depth housing study. Green Bay, Oshkosh, Appleton, Fond du Lac, and coming soon, the town of Grand Chute, all for very good reasons. It provides you with your own independent and unbiased source of information. And I love that. I love that it's not just me sometimes talking about these things and throwing out statistics. You don't have to take my word for it now. You've got your own very good study to rely on. Also, our eyes and our perceptions can often deceive us. Homes are being built. Multifamily units are going up. New projects are being lauded in the media. And if you are someone who is close to you isn't currently trying to find a home or an apartment that is affordable to the average person, you might think that we are having plenty of housing growth. Great, what is everybody complaining about? I see stuff going on all the time. The housing study also helps to answer more nuanced questions that a comprehensive plan doesn't really have the ability to get into. Questions beyond do we need more housing, but questions such as what kinds of housing, what price points, where do we put that housing, how do we attract that housing? This study enables you to really get into the weeds on a lot of those topics. It will also hopefully be an invaluable tool in educating the public, but also provide you a framework for future decisions related to housing. Just last night, I was at a public hearing almost all night for the city of Green Bay on a large development proposal, and it's probably been a dozen times that their housing study was referenced. And it's 5 years old, and even the city council and staff are saying, gosh, we really want to update this housing study because things have changed so dramatically in housing in just 5 years. But I think they all would say that it has been an invaluable tool for them. The study can also be a bellwether for future demographic changes and how they will impact housing needs and demand. For instance, most people are not aware that across the country, and including Wisconsin, we will likely see as much as 50% of all households being one-person households by 2030. Also shocking is the growing age of the first-time homebuyer. It is 38 today, and likely will hit 40 years old in the next year or two, where historic averages were first-time homebuyers were in their early 30s. These two statistics alone will have a tremendous impact on our communities and will alter housing needs dramatically. The study does a great job of emphasizing over and over again that Neenah needs housing of all types and various price points. Total units needed to equate, I think the consultant said, about 100 units per year. But just for perspective, going into this, 2021, 36 building permits in Neenah. 2022, 37 building permits. 2023, 43 permits. 2024, 82. You had a great year. Congratulations. But again, given the enormous deficit that we've created over the last 10 years in underbuilding, barely, 82, and I don't know, I don't feel so great about this upcoming year in the economy. We'll see what happens if you're going to be able to hit as high as 82 again. But we're looking at a long time of really trying to stretch to meet even per year, what you need to build to meet demand. The plan effectively highlights key strategies for addressing the housing shortage, not just creating density, but expanding the variety of housing types. This is a crucial point I can't stress enough. A diverse range of housing types should be incorporated into every development project across the city, from new subdivisions to infill developments. Not only does this help break the cycle of economic segregation that has become deeply ingrained in our society, but it will allow developers in their projects to reduce overall costs, provide a variety of price points and options, and mitigate financial risk. The most efficient and effective way to achieve this is by simplifying residential zoning codes and offering greater flexibility by permitting a range of housing types within R1 zones. I just want to make sure I say that again. It's like the most important thing I've said all week. The most effective way is we've got to simplify our residential zoning codes. Every time a developer has to come forward for either a rezone or, God help them, a PUD, just to be able to incorporate different housing types into a development project, you are going to create significant delays, invite a number of hurdles, and add a lot of uncertainty, essentially discouraging those who want to provide more housing options. Additionally, this approach, simplifying the codes, presents an ideal solution for developing missing middle housing, which the report talks quite a bit about, without having to rely heavily on financial subsidies. The gap right now in new construction between market rate and what the average person can afford is growing wider every single day. And the only way to bridge that is either going to be through subsidies or by allowing the developer to spread costs throughout the development through a range of housing options. Our communities are evolving, and in order to keep up, we have to adapt, particularly when it comes to how we create and manage housing. While change is often met with resistance, addressing the housing crisis requires us to rethink our approach. This study aims to prevent us from ignoring the pressing need of better housing solutions, and ideally will serve as a valuable tool for the city making informed, thoughtful decisions about housing policy. That was very formal. I'm going to go off script for a minute. Be brave. I'm going to say that more bluntly. The city can have perfect codes, perfect zoning codes, perfect subdivision codes, all of it for development. You can have incredible staff, as you do, working with developers and guiding them through the process. Extremely efficient. But it all comes down to this room, to all of you. The buck stops here. And whether housing gets created or not comes down to your decision making. The wheels can come off right here. And so what I'm hoping is that this housing study provides you with the backing that you need to make sometimes very difficult decisions on housing, but that are needed to serve the best interests of the entire community, not just now, not just today, not just for the next 3 years, but for future generations. That's what I believe this housing study can provide you. Congratulations on a very proactive investment by doing this housing study. Well done. I'd be happy to entertain any questions, but I think the best questions will be able to be answered by your consultants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public forum?
Deb Laniker, 631 Winnebago Heights. I also want to praise the recent housing study. The findings that point out the need for more housing at all economic levels. I can't add much more than Jennifer did. She did a great job lifting up the study's takeaways. But relating to the proposed community development block grants, I had a couple of comments. Since Neenah doesn't have any shelters for those in need, and there is need in Neenah, within the Neenah School District last school year, there were 115 kids that were designated homeless, according to HUD's McKinney-Vento Act that provides services for these kids. Anyway, the proposed CDBG does have some continued spending for the public service agencies that do support the population, even though it's not in the city budget. And now, in light of the housing findings, I'd like to see a large increase in the CDBG funds dedicated to the housing and economic category that could possibly assist developers in creating more homes in Neenah. I just hope you guys use all the tools you have and creative thinking you have to provide housing for the future residents, taxpayers, and voters. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hello there. My name's Susan Garcia Franz. I actually live in 1790 Wendy Way in Fox Crossing, but I do work for the Winnebago County Public Health Department as community health strategist working on affordable housing, as well as I'm on the Fox Cities Housing Coalition as vice president and affordable housing subcommittee chair. And I've come before you to say this is a study where, put on the books, it would be nice to continue to have an action plan to move it forward in your city to have more affordable housing in Neenah. You've heard all the reasons when you have students. I also am on the Neenah Joint School District Board, and when you have students that are unhoused or are precariously housed, meaning that they are doubled up, tripled up in houses, as well as sometimes living in shelters and other things, it is very difficult for academic achievement to continue when you're worried about your basic needs or where you're going to sleep at night. And so I think we really, as a community, need to come together to say that's unacceptable in Neenah. I was born and raised in Neenah, lived in Neenah for a good portion of my life, have lived in the Fox Cities area for most of my life, and I want to say that a lot of what we see as we do community health assessments and we do the studies and we do point-in-time counts is a lot of people don't see homelessness in the community, especially if you're housed, you don't see it. But we see the what happens to families as we serve families through Winnebago County with our WIC program and other programs that we offer. We just really see the stress and the impact to health in our community. As people are unhoused in our community, it continues to be a burden on their health and the long-term costs to the community when people are burdened and not being able to be housed really comes to play long-term costs for the city of Neenah, along with the county and the state and our entire country. So really focusing in on this particular study is really important on that missing middle. We've been doing a lot of presentations out in the community to community groups with the Fox Cities Housing Coalition and really talking about that missing middle. So duplexes, triplexes, the townhouses, and you've seen in Neenah some come online. Affordability might not quite be where we would love to see it, but we see that and they fill up. It's not as if people won't live there. And I want to say, as a mother who has a 22-year-old and a 24-year-old, and one that's going to be a future teacher, I'm worried about him having to live in my house longer than he should because he can't afford to either rent or a future down payment on a future home. And I think it's unfortunate because I think my husband and I, my husband's from Ecuador, we definitely benefited from an opportunity with the Winnebago County Home Buyer Program, and still to this day our residents in the community, as a result of that, the programs we have are essential for people to be able to access affordable housing and get into some of the markets. And the reason we have programs is because sometimes in this world, the prices go beyond what people are making income-wise, and they need a balancer often just as a step up until they are able to find opportunities into the future. So I just want to say all of that together is, I'm a partner here. I would love to continue to work with the community development department, along with constant connection with our community. We have ongoing meetings that we have, and want to continue to be that voice of what we're seeing out in your community and what we're seeing at all the different levels, and be able to be partners in getting some of this plan implemented into action and continue that work as we go on. So thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this report, this study. I'm really excited to continue to share it out with the community as a whole. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hi, my name's Christine Journalista. I'm at 769 Yorkshire here in Neenah. I'm here as a resident and also as a representative of the Fox Cities Housing Alliance. Very pleased to see that Neenah has invested in the housing study. And my global comment on the study, beyond it being well done, is that I would like to see Neenah work collaboratively on these strategies with other communities and with the various county governments. Neenah's housing market obviously doesn't exist in a vacuum and is part of a much larger market. And this newly formed Fox Cities Housing Alliance is a collaborative that will be focused on the overall housing ecosystem in our Tri-County region. We are going to be getting launched, actually, our steering committee just in this spring. And I'd really invite Neenah to participate in that effort. Managing housing trust funds, creating community land trusts, or supporting the emergence of new developers that will address the missing middle and other types of creative housing stock really is best done with the energy and the resources of all the communities surrounding Neenah. So again, thanks for the opportunity to speak on this, and I really look forward to working with staff on this effort.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening. Lisa Strandberg, 325 12th Street in Neenah. I also am executive director for Pillars, so I'm here with a twofer to thank you for your inclusion of Pillars among CDBG proposed investments again this year. Vital investment in services that do meet the needs of Neenah residents experiencing homelessness and housing instability. I also want to applaud the city's decision to pursue the housing study and to encourage you not just to accept it, but to embrace it and to act upon it, and to do so in collaboration with other communities, with partners in the community. You've heard from plenty of us tonight, and I am really encouraged, as you heard from Christine just lately, about the regionality of the response. So glad to see Neenah also taking steps to take action on a vital problem. Homelessness is a housing problem, and I'm glad to see you working to solve that problem with our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public forum? Anyone else? Seeing no one, I will close the public forum. I would like to take the liberty to address then the next item following public forum, that is Mayor Council consideration of public forum issues. If there are any that need to come to the council's attention, if anyone would like to speak. I do have one comment to make relative to the strategic plan for Winnebago County. And I had been informed on Saturday by one of our representatives that the supervisors have been told that local leaders and municipalities had been contacted relative to the strategic plan. I reached out to all of the department heads, and no one was contacted at the city of Neenah to participate and give input on the county's strategic plan. So I was very disappointed by that. But just wanted to clarify that. We would have gladly participated had we been asked. Is there any other comment anybody would like to make?
I would just like to piggyback on that. As an alderman, I didn't get any correspondence, or nobody reached out to me as well. I don't know if anybody else on the council was contacted, but I wasn't.
Any other comments? Seeing none, then we will go back up to item number 2, which is the Neenah Housing Study Needs and Assessment presentation by Stantec Consulting. I'll turn it over to Interim Director Brad Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor. 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 Thank you, Mayor.
Wow, rapping Brad.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, I think they're okay. Now we're good. First of all, I'm very excited to present this housing study. This is something that is long overdue. Housing has been a critical issue in the city since at least 2008 after the housing crisis. I want to really just thank, obviously, anyone who's showing up and has spoken in support of the study. Certainly thank the Plan Commission. They served as the steering committee for this study. The community members who participated in the survey, the housing stakeholders who were interviewed by Stantec, and then ultimately Spencer and his team. They were great to work with. They went above and beyond. They came to our community. They wanted to learn about our community, learn about our housing issues. They spent the whole day here traveling throughout the community, speaking with stakeholders, developers, home builders, to really get a sense of what Neenah is and what our challenges are when it comes to housing. So overall, I'm very pleased with the outcome of this study. This is an objective study looking at our economic, our demographic, and our housing identity. And I think it does a really good job at that. It doesn't just look at Neenah as being in a vacuum. It does look at Neenah as being part of the Fox Cities and the larger tri-county area being Winnebago County, Calumet, and Outagamie. Really, at the end of the day, the most important part of this study is the strategies and the policies that are proposed. We all know we need more housing. We all know we need different types of housing, and obviously, housing affordability has become an issue. But what can we do as a city? We are not home builders. Cities don't build houses. We help facilitate and encourage housing to be built. So we have to look at ourselves in the mirror. What are those things that, from a regulatory standpoint, that can be changed to help facilitate housing? What are those things from regulatory that are adding to the cost of housing? So again, this isn't an all-inclusive list in terms of you do these things and housing will be better. I think it's the first start. So I'm very happy with the strategies that were developed. And with that, I will turn it over to Spencer for his presentation.
Great. Can everyone hear me? Brad, give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen and hear me. Great. First off, I just want to thank City Council and the City of Neenah for the opportunity to conduct this housing study. It was a real joy, actually, to work with all the stakeholders and community members and city staff that were part of this study and help make it into what I think is a pretty successful project of trying to really deeply understand Neenah's housing market and understanding the distinct pressures that are operating within the housing market and trying to identify some potential solutions that can continue to make Neenah a really exciting and lovely place to live. And as a person that visited, I can say that the downtown area, the residential neighborhoods, I was really impressed with the city of Neenah and really enjoyed my time. But with 10 minutes, I think it's time for me to jump into the presentation. Um, in terms of understanding housing demand, we really look at economic drivers and job creation as the main force of creating new population and population growth. The Neenah economy is part of the Appleton, Oshkosh, Neenah broader economic region, and that region has seen some really strong growth at the tail end of the recovery from the Great Recession, so about 2013 on, and has continued to see that growth centered in manufacturing related industries and in corporate management. And those are two very strong industries because they produce a high quality range of jobs from middle income jobs up into higher income jobs. In terms of occupations that are created, those occupations support a broad range of services and a broad range of both lower income services as well as high-end services that serve the broader community. And we started to look at the relationship between the most plentiful jobs in the community and where those incomes land in the housing spectrum. A lot of the jobs that are created for a single income household will position Neenah households within or below 60% AMI. And AMI refers to the area's median income. And so what that means is that if you take a low-income housing tax credit project, those units are created to be affordable for households earning 60% of the region's AMI. So a lot of single-income earners in a broad range of occupations that are central to the economic development and growth of the region would be qualifying for housing that would be considered affordable or be more likely to be renting in the context of Neenah's existing affordable housing that exists within the community. So growth overall has been really strong in a broad range of middle income professions, but there's also the creation of new jobs as well from the effective demand that produces a broad range of demand, both for kind of entry-level single-family homes, but also for a growing need for rental housing and affordable rental housing for those earning less than 60% of AMI. And this includes both single income households that are much more likely to be earning less than 60% AMI, whereas dual income households tend to move into the range of being able to afford a home or being able to afford an entry level home in the community. In terms of demographics, Neenah does have kind of two main dynamics that are happening. The first is that overall since 1970, there's been a major decline in total household size as populations age and families get smaller. And while that decline has been happening for a 40 to 50 year period, there has been a slight uptick in the household size as newer families are moving into the community and pursuing more stable manufacturing jobs. This kind of trend towards slightly larger households and towards families doesn't negate the fact that the largest proportion of households within the community still remain people above 55 years old that kind of live alone in smaller households. I think Jennifer brought this up earlier, that a larger percent of households are moving towards single-person households, creating demand for a broader spectrum of homes that might not fit the single-family home with 3 bedrooms that was produced in the post-war period and that makes up the majority of Neenah's single-family housing stock. So as Neenah has continued to add new households to the community, housing production has not met up, and the gap between housing units and households that have been added have continued to shrink, not just within Neenah, but also within the broader region. And that constriction within the housing market between new demand from households moving in and the lack of new supply that's being added to the market means that housing costs are going up, and that's both true in the rental market and in the ownership market. In the rental market, rental demand is strong nationwide for a broad array of reasons. As housing prices have gotten more expensive, it's more difficult to save the money to enter into home ownership. Likewise, many more households are entering into their adult lives with more absorbed debt from college education, which makes it difficult to take on a mortgage as more debt within their household budgets. And second and third, there's a growing proportion of households, in particular millennials and Gen Z households that tend to be younger and be in the renting stage of their life, and a growing proportion of people in the 55 plus range of kind of the baby boomer generation that's aging, as well as moving into the rental market. Combine that with the factors of increased rental demand during the pandemic as more households moved out of perhaps combined housing into their own housing, and demand across the board really skyrocketed for rental housing across the 2010s, and particularly in the post-COVID environment. Within Neenah, the vacancy rate for multifamily housing dropped below what's generally considered equilibrium of 5% in the mid to late 2010s, and dipped as far below as 1%. And what that means is that when the vacancy rate gets below 5%, it becomes much easier for a landlord to find a tenant and ability to increase that rent and still find tenants. So it supports, in general, landlords that have the ability to increase rents. And what you see is an inverse relationship, right? So as vacancy rates go down, rents tend to go up. If you look at stabilized vacancy, as new units have added to the market, that's increased vacancy because those new units take time to fill up. But overall, stabilized vacancy still sits around 3%, which is really low and indicates continued strong demand for rental housing. But as a consequence of these housing costs going up, 37% of Neenah households are cost burdened, which means that they're paying more than 30% of their income in rent. Of those that are earning $50,000 or less, which is a large amount of occupations of single income earners, the vast majority of them are cost burdened when they're renting. So there's a strong demand for rental housing, in particular on the affordability side. When it comes to ownership housing, there's also really strong demand, in particular for entry-level homes. So as new households have entered into the area and as millennials are moving into first-time home buyer status, there's really strong demand, in particular on kind of the more affordable homes that exist within Neenah. And those homes tend to be the older homes that were built historically, that tend to be more affordable for households entering the market, but there's strong demand across the board. And the reason for this household growth, demand, or prices in housing is because there's increased demand for housing and really limited supply. So if you look on the graph on the left here, overall inventory has tended to go down, and that inventory has gone down both secularly since 2017, but also really started to go down in the post-pandemic era as mortgage rate went up. So as mortgage rates went up, there's a lot fewer households that are looking to put their house on the market because they secured lower interest rates during the COVID period when interest rates were around 1 or 2%, versus kind of the 6 to 7 to 8% that it was in the last couple of years as we've battled inflation. But what the general data tends to show is that the demand is really strong, in particular for entry-level homes and kind of at the lower price points in the community. There's also really broad macroeconomic conditions that shape the housing market that have decreased affordability. So interest rates is a primary one. On the same median price home, a shift between 3% to 8% in interest rates increases the income required to purchase that home by $30,000, or about a third. So it has a really big impact on the ability to afford that home. So not only have interest rates gone up, but interest rates impact the construction of new housing by increasing the financing costs for developers, in combination with increasing costs for developers in the form of input costs. So lumber, wood, metal, labor have all tended to go up since the pandemic, which overall has increased housing prices and the construction of new housing units. It's extremely difficult to build a new single-family home for less than $350,000. And that price point puts it far above the median price in kind of the upper tier of homes. But nonetheless, adding that supply to the housing market increases the ability of people to move into that housing, increasing the housing supply and allowing people to move into the houses that they may be vacating. So in general, additional supply can reduce overall housing costs, even though the new supply that's coming on the market tends to be expensive. As we kind of understood these broader changes, we identified, right, the different housing needs and the major growth factors within the community. We also sought to project moving forward what the housing needs will be. We did that through a pretty standard population and household growth model that leveraged both kind of economic inputs as well as population growth inputs to estimate total market need in the future. So the household growth was about 740 new households, home housing units to meet household growth, as well as a general replacement rate of 100 units over the 10-year period, or 10 units a year, as well as an adjustment based on the current vacancies within the community and the fact that they're underneath kind of a threshold for market health. And we made an adjustment based on those number of units to kind of bring that within what would be considered a healthier equilibrium market. And that leads to about 960 units. And as Jennifer brought up earlier, that's about 100 units per year, which is below kind of the annual addition of new supply that's been happening in recent history. What we then did is applied a model to understand by income where those households are being added into the community and the proportion of those households within those different income brackets that are likely to rent and likely to own. And what we did was we were able to provide an understanding of the total units within these income brackets and the ability to kind of meet that housing both from new housing within the community as well as product that exists within the community. And what it tends to show is that it's really difficult to provide new ownership housing for some of the most in-demand segments of the economy. For people earning between and around $75,000, or around 80% of AMI, it's very difficult to build new single-family homes that are meeting that need spectrum for new ownership housing. Nonetheless, there's still strong demand for that single-family homes. And again, as I said earlier, producing those single-family homes at the price points that are most affordable will open up additional older housing stock for new first-time home buyers to enter into the market. Likewise, there's still very strong demand for affordable housing. Efforts to produce LIHTC or low-income housing tax credit projects in most recent history at the Shattuck Middle School, unfortunately, was blocked politically. And the consequences of that are pretty significant in the lack of being able to add new LIHTC units to the community. But there's also general demand for more market rate units as well. Again, adding supply both within the affordable range and within market rate ranges will increase the supply of housing relative to demand and bring it kind of in line to be able to kind of keep prices more stable within the community. In terms of understanding kind of these major demand drivers, then we identified kind of the three aspects, right? So there's demand for entry-level ownership housing. A supply solution for that is building new ownership housing and fostering and encouraging experimentation with higher density ownership housing. So this is the middle density housing like plexes, townhomes that can potentially be brought to the market at lower costs that allows for the household that's earning 80% of AMI to be able to own a home. But by adding new homes in the market that can be added at the price points that are currently being hit by the developer side, there are cascading impacts that existing older homes will open up on the market. Likewise, we identified really strong demand for affordable rental options for lower income households. LIHTC projects will be met with very strong demand, in particular from single income households, from people working really crucial economic jobs that are in the forefront of the community. And the third demand driver is demand for diverse senior or post-ownership housing. While there's a growing amount of senior housing or post-ownership housing that's in the rental market, there's very strong demand that we identified in the survey from people that are 65 plus that are looking to move in the next 5 years, but aren't able to find the kinds of units that they're looking for within the community. And those units tend to be smaller units, single level units that have less maintenance, that might allow an aging household or a household with grandkids in the area to stay during the summer months, leave for the winter, but have less management over their properties over that same time period. So there's kind of a demand for that post single family ownership for the senior market or for the older market, empty nester market within the community that could be met by kind of middle density housing. So we identified those as kind of the major needs within the community of housing types and price points. And we identified a range of solutions to try to meet those needs. And what we kind of identified, we produced a menu of strategies to do that. But one of the things that were kind of the lowest hanging fruit and that have already been talked about from people that were speaking earlier were adjustments to the zoning code, and in particular developing a zoning code that lowers the risk for new development, that allows for increasing middle density homes, so townhomes, again, plexes, and lower, smaller multifamily homes within different neighborhoods within the community. So we produced a range of different zoning revisions that could really address supply-related needs and increase the supply of infill development and new development. We also produced a new range of strategies that can help identify needs for increasing supply across the housing types that we identified. And the main emphasis that I want to put here is that while zoning remains one of the major aspects, a big aspect of attracting new development is creating a level playing field that's very clear to developers what their costs will be going in up front, and knowing that if they're starting to develop a project that they won't face community resistance when it comes to developing the kind of housing that's been developed within the community. So being very pro-development and signaling very clearly to developers, in particular those that are developing affordable housing, that Neenah is open for adding new housing and doing so across a range of different price points and housing types can really signal to developers too to invest within the community, and there's opportunity to do that. So those are kind of the low-hanging fruits in terms of strategies that exist, but we provide also a range of other strategies to increase the supply of housing in like really needed areas within the community. I think that's 10 minutes. We have time for some questions. If we can't get the questions right now, because I understand it's late, we can also do some questions via email or other things as well if there are other ones. I'll hand it back over to Brad here now.
Okay. Are there any questions for Spencer or for myself?
Thank you. I just have some comments and just a little background. Spencer, I'm a landlord. I've been a landlord in Neenah for 20 years. I have 13 rental units that are 60% AMI or below. So I know that world of workforce housing, and I just recently started a home building business, still working on my first home. And I just couple things that I thought needed to be added, because I think if you just to give this more, you know, because I think this is a really good blueprint, and I hope this is a continuously working and breathing document, so it doesn't go on a shelf like years in government I've seen happen, which I think is a shame. Just some comments and then some information I think that could be added. First, the vacancy rates, the reference, like the graphs from ASCS and CoStar. All the graphs I see are almost 3 years old, so I think that and the ones from CoStar for vacancies don't include single-family rentals, duplexes, triplexes, or small apartment complexes. So I think that is a way to get more deep into that in the future to get a more accurate vacancy rate, because 5% has been thrown around by every associate I've seen for years, and it's, you know, I don't know, it could be higher, it could be lower, but in 2022 and till now, we've had a lot of units added on. So I think that's something that should be looked at. Other thing, as for landlord, as far as, you know, what impacted housing is COVID-19. The government intervention was massive. I mean, they had foreclosure moratoriums, they had emergency rental assistance that you had to take, otherwise legal action could be taken against you. Eviction moratoriums by the CDC and the Governor Evers executive order was, I mean, that is, I think it's important to know the massive impact that had in the landlord community and rental community. And that could be added later to this, I think. Galloway, and this is not a slide on Galloway, but Galloway Corporation has purchased quite a few homes in their need for space, which is, I think, had an impact on the Neenah market specific to Neenah, and it's good to be aware of that because that was, you know, a big impact. And then, you know, and then also community block grant dollars were used to take down a lot of homes for a lot of different reasons, and that wasn't referenced in the study. That's more Neenah specific, but I think it's important, especially what Mrs. I think Sundstrom said about the council's action having impact on the housing market. This council took those actions, and they just, right, wrong, whatever, should be conscious of the impact that has on the housing market moving forward. And last thing I wanted to comment on is, because I was hearing a lot of the meetings in regard to the Shattuck property, and it's kind of being framed, it feels like it's being framed in the study that the NIMBYs or the community were the resistance, and somewhat that's true, you know, but they weren't the only option. There were other players in that, you know, in that time frame, because I sat down with, like, I had lunch with Lakeside Development, you know, John Graham, and he didn't really have a good experience, he said, working with the city of Neenah. That was his perception. I can only attest to what he said, but I've also talked to other developers who've had similar comments. So we just got to be conscious. Anytime you do a study or try to approve, I think it's important to look at things maybe you don't feel comfortable looking at, whether it's from an alderman's perspective or the city's perspective, and communication is key. And I just hope that, you know, people are cognizant of that there's other areas of improvement as well. Everything isn't just, because this is kind of, and this isn't a slide on anybody, but, you know, everything the city does is great, and, you know, the challenges are X, Y, Z. I think if we do more outreach and more communication on the council side and this community development side for developers, I think we have room for improvement as that as well. Thank you.
Mayor. Thank you. Couple of points. I think, too, that this is a great study. It truly is. And thank you, Brad and Spencer and all of you that spent the time on this, our department folks, dating back to the days when, I recall when Bob Buckingham was our Director of Community Development, he took a one-time grant and converted that into something that's living to this day from a CDGB, and that's the Revolving Door Fund, which we got recognized for by the state for being very creative. And I think the city works at that very closely. Where I come down is going to the future with this, and it was said very appropriately from the audience that it does come down to the council body. And I can recall when we had the Shattuck development up for discussion amongst this body, and I came and I spoke in support of it as a private citizen before I took this chair here. What I think we need to do is the pushback that I have heard from developers was not so much anything but from what this body did not do, and that was to approve that plan. And they have become gun shy to a degree of coming to the city of Neenah because everybody loved the plan idea, but at the end of the day, NAMBY kicked in, not in my backyard. This body has also done that when it comes to putting sidewalks in. And I bring that up as a portion because all of this plays into the game that if we're going to have rules and regulations to go forward, we have to stick to them. If we bend the breeze, then we do not have an accountable plan that we can live with. If we think a plan is wrong, we should address it and change it, but don't do it at the last minute because we get some folks who come in and say, NAMBY. And I think that is something that this body is going to need to work on because nobody wants certain things in their neighborhood. But we need to become more innovative. I think this plan is absolutely tremendous. I think that it will help discuss the poverty level. I believe that it will help with the homeless level. And from those two principles, I would like to know what the clear definitions of those two categories are, because they mean many things to many people and many reasons. So when we hear the word poverty, when we hear the word homeless, I would like to know what the backstory is that defines by somebody's standards that number is based upon these criterias. I, for one, don't know what that criteria is, but of course we want to help everybody. And lastly, as I support for this, is just a reminder that this, as my council colleague said, this is a living, breathing document. And this is one that we will need to continue to nurture and change and check temperature and see how things can be adjusted, because that's what it's all about. But at the end of the day, when the buck does stop with this austere group that I'm honored to serve with, my reminder is that we need to do what is right sometimes and what is not popular. Thank you, Mayor.
Tammy?
I have two observations. One thing I have noticed in my area is that there are seniors that are keeping their homes even though they don't live there. And I see that on multiple streets throughout my district, and it may happen throughout the city, that they have no intent of living in their homes anymore, but they are keeping their homes for whatever reason. And those homes are not entering back into the housing market. And I don't know if you've observed that at all with, if that's been something that you've noticed or the reasons why for that. And then I also, we received an email from Judd Stevenson who suggested that there is also a need for condominiums for seniors to move to who want to not have their homes, but also have housing with something before they would ever enter an assisted living or a senior apartment, et cetera. Is that something that we should be looking at as well? I didn't hear the word condominium at all, but we have very few in the city, and because I am getting older, I'm getting these mailings from Appleton and Fox Crossing about these senior options, and we don't seem to have that in Neenah. So I'm just wondering about that as well.
Spencer, do you got any comments on that?
Yeah, I think those are all some good points. I think on the technical basis around vacancy rates in response to the first set of questions, you have to kind of balance these two different data sets. So you have the ACS data, which is the values that we provided here were the most recent data that you're able to get from that survey. And the survey, is a 5-year survey that takes samples from 2018 to 2022. But we use that vacancy rate for a lot of measures because it includes the duplexes, single family homes, the range of different rental options that aren't necessarily multifamily buildings. So we use that vacancy data, even though it's not necessarily the most contemporary data. It's the most that we can get that gets and tracks that market. The second data for CoStar tracks the multifamily market, and that data is up to date. And the data that's presented in the housing study is through the time it was conducted. And so the vacancy rates there, if you're looking at vacancy rates within Neenah of stabilized vacancy, it's been below 3% since 2019. So that data is accurate because it's based on CoStar's database. They own apartments.com. So every time that an apartment owner posts an apartment into their registry, they're able to track that. So that's up to the market data. I think I also wanted to touch on the issue of condominiums. I think there is strong demand for condominiums. There's strong demand for condominiums across different markets. One of the challenges with the condominium market is that insuring condominiums has become increasingly difficult. So it's really hard to build condominiums because the insurance for condominiums is often prohibitive in terms of overall cost. So across all markets, you've seen a lot of newer multifamily apartments being built, as well as senior housing that's rental housing or patio homes. And that's because patio homes or smaller single family homes or duplexes can be insured in a way that allows them to be built. So that's kind of a big market failure that's happening across many communities and leading to a lack of kind of that condominium, especially entry-level condominium product that was very commonly built last time there was high inflation in the late 1970s and early 1980s. That doesn't deny the fact that there would be really strong demand for ownership multifamily product. And I think that would be really important for the senior community.
I have a question
I
on
think
that.
in terms of hearing two different things too from developers. So we conducted developer interviews with people that have developed within multifamily housing within the last 15 years. And there has been strong recognition on two fronts. One is that the city works really well, is one of the best to work with in the Fox Cities region in terms of helping developers get projects built. It has a really strong reputation from people that have worked in the community as a really pro-development community. But there was also in almost every conversation, both with local developers and with LIHTC developers, of the Shattuck Medical site as something that was kind of a red flag that they noted as something that would be against kind of that the community has resistance to adding affordable housing and makes it riskier in terms of a developer coming into a project to build multifamily housing. So that sends the wrong signals to developers about kind of the needs within the community. And that was very clear in many different housing interviews.
I just have a follow-up question. You had said the condominiums are hard to insure. However, I just received a mailing from Appleton for a huge condominium project. I know there's one going on in Fox Crossing right now. So it is happening in our communities and close by. So I don't know how they're doing it when you said that it's hard to do. So that's I'm struggling with that.
I think what's challenging is bringing it to rate at affordable prices. So higher end condominiums have been developed, right? You have a range of higher end condominiums that get built that have higher price points, closer to single family homes. What's really difficult is doing it at a really affordable level. So you can build condominiums, but a lot of the times the price points are still pretty high and aren't necessarily kind of the entry level housing price point that might be most attractive to people that are looking in that market. So it kind of limits the demand overall for condominiums, but by making them more expensive.
Just to follow up then, but it also helps with the seniors leaving their current homes, and it helps with the housing stock if they go to those, and then it opens up some more opportunities for people to buy a home in a neighborhood, buy a school, et cetera. Because I live by a school, and I could tell you, I can count 5 homes that I know aren't currently being lived in, because the seniors now have moved on, but they are keeping their homes, and they're not even living there. So, you had I couldn't hear you. I think he had a comment and I didn't hear it.
I hear very well.
Sorry, Spencer, you want to repeat your comment?
Oh, I was just agreeing with who was speaking. Sorry, I don't have names or faces in front of me.
Okay.
It makes it a little difficult. But I agree that it provides a really strong housing type for seniors that are looking for lower maintenance housing options that might be selling their homes, and then opens up that single family housing stock in communities that may be appropriate for younger households that are looking to be closer to schools. And that building kind of that multifamily housing stock, both for ownership and rental, can really help that kind of neighborhood churn that isn't really happening in the market, because I think you're right that there is not that product. And I think a lot of people that are looking to move that are seniors that participate in the survey, they did identify that there were not the housing types that they desire. So I think you're right in identifying condominiums as being a potential option or a strong option for kind of generating some of that turnover and churn within single family neighborhoods that would be really beneficial for the community.
Thank you. Steiner?
I'd also just like to echo a lot of the comments that have been made already. I thought the housing study was excellent. I thought it was thorough. What I really appreciated were the tangible recommendations addressing very specific needs, because there are a wide variety of needs. And from my perspective, I'll just say, as a member of the Plan Commission, and certainly talking with Interim Director Schmidt, this is not a report that we plan on sitting on the shelf. We're actually going to have as an agenda item in Planning Commission meetings, even if there's nothing going on, an item to talk about opportunities and ideas on how to address specific action items related to this plan. The final thing I just want to say, we turn on the news and there's all kinds of issues and problems that I think we feel powerless to address. This is something where within this council, it's a significant problem nationwide, and specifically, in the counties that we live in and in the city of Neenah. And it's actually something where we can tangibly do things that will help benefit people to a significant degree. So I think I look at this study as a huge opportunity for us. It's basically a blueprint that will allow us to really supercharge, different building options, opportunities to tangibly improve the livelihoods of our citizens within the community.
Are there any additional comments? Alderman Paulno?
Thank you, Mayor. I remember at the last Plan Commission, Interim Director Schmidt, I think you said the low-hanging fruit, like the first thing, because a lot of people had asked, was the zoning code changes. And I think it feels, and correct me if I'm wrong, this would dovetail very well into as I understand or remember, the 2025 planned zoning code review process. Would that be a fair thing to say? That's the low-hanging fruit right away?
Yeah, absolutely. I think looking at those regulatory zoning changes, bringing it to Plan Commission, talking about, some of them are a lot easier than others, but certainly starting that conversation and moving that forward.
Cool. Thank you.
Are there any additional comments? Thank you so much for that presentation and for the housing study. I think it was fantastic. We really appreciate all of the hard work that was done by Brad Schmidt and by Spencer Cox, so thank you for that. We will move on then to the report from the Plan Commission meeting of March 11th. Alderman Steiner.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning Commission met on March 11th. Minutes can be found on the city website. Plan Commission recommends council. Alderman Paul now leaned over and said, is it better to say receive and place on file rather than accept? Was that a recommendation we previously had, or do we accept and place on file?
At Plan Commission, I believe we accepted
Okay.
and placed on file, so I think that is the motion coming out of the Plan Commission.
All right. Council accept and place on file Neenah Housing Study and Needs Assessment presented by Stantec Consulting, and I so move.
Second.
There's a motion by Alderman Steiner, seconded by Alderman Ellis. Is there any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, I don't have a button right now.
Oh,
The reason I had brought that up to Alderman Steiner, because when the professor was in front of us, who gave us a lot of information on a lot of things, he had recommended to do the receive and place on file so it doesn't get construed later as accept, like you accept everything in it. So it was a process.
I'm just bringing it forward as it was presented and voted on at Plan Commission.
And that's fair, yeah. I'm more, I guess I would make a motion then to change that verbiage to receive and place on file for the recommendation of the professor, because I think that's what we're doing, receiving, because accepting indicates you accept everything in it. Maybe it's just semantics, but I guess I would make that motion. I don't know how I would do it without a button, but can I just do it verbally then?
Sure.
See if I get a second. If not, then nobody agrees.
I'll second it. I kind of agree. Actually, it makes more sense.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to amend the language to read receive and place on file the Neenah Housing Study and Needs Assessment presented by Stantec Consulting. We'll just give the clerk a second to type that in. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. To receive and place on file.
So it's, oh wait, are we changing? I think I made a mistake there.
This is the amended language to receive and place on file that Alderman Paulno is suggesting.
Aye.
I meant
Voting
to
yes.
say yes. Is that, I understand this.
Yahoo.
I meant to say yes.
The motion.
So was I voting on the changing of the language, or was I
Yes.
voting on the change of
Yeah,
I
the
like
change
it-
of the
I
language.
like the report.
And we want to,
Okay.
we want to receive and accept it.
That's fine. So this was the motion to change the language on the motion. Now we can go back to the motion that was on the floor, that is to now receive and place on file. Is that everybody clear now?
As mug.
Okay. So the current motion now on the floor is the reworded recommendation to receive and place on file the Neenah Housing Study and Needs Assessment presented by Stantec Consulting. Please cast your vote on your voting device. Whoop, sorry.
So the first vote was the amended motion to receive and place on file.
To change the language.
Right. So that passed. So now you have to go back to
Yes, that's
the
what I did.
original motion to
Yep.
accept and place on file?
No, now that the language has been changed in that motion, now we are voting on the newly worded receive and place on file motion.
Then I need a minute to change that motion.
Okay.
And we still have Steiner and Boyette. We still have Steiner and Boyette approving motion and second.
Right. Yeah, it is. That's all right.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Are we ready? Please cast your vote on your voting device.
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, it must have worked, Bill. That passes 9-0.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report.
Thank God.
The next item on the agenda is the public hearing. This is to consider 2025 Community Development Block Grant Program proposed use of funds, annual action plan, consolidated plan. No action is required on this. Is this something that Carol is presenting on, or we're just opening that public hearing then? Is there anyone here who would like to speak in the public hearing? Anyone here who would like to speak in the public hearing? Anyone here who would like to speak? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing for consideration of the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Program, proposed use of funds. And now we are jumping down to item 6. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of the appointment of Rebecca Heidke Kwiatkowski to the Sustainable Neenah Committee for a 3-year term expiring December 2028? Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, that is approved. Is there any objection, the next item on the agenda, to the approval of the council minutes and proceedings of March 5th, 2025 regular session? Any objection to the approval of the council minutes and proceedings? Seeing none, those council minutes and proceedings are approved. The next items, the consent agenda. Item A is change of agent for Pick and Save number 412 828 Fox Point Plaza to Corey Santorello. And item B, change of agent for Pick and Save number 124 1530 South Commercial Street to Mary Brown, agent. Is there any objection to unanimous consent on the consent agenda? Seeing no objection, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to item 9, reports of standing committees, the regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of March 11th. Chairman Lendrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I am reporting out from the regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of March 11th, 2025, and minutes can be found on the city website. We have only one item tonight, and it is committee recommends council approve ordinance number 2025-01, amending Chapter 14, Article 7 of the Code of Ordinances relating to street furniture, and I would so move.
There is a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Lendrum.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that I thought Director Schmidt was here. Oh, he is back in his chair. Okay, there he is. I'm so used to being up there. Interim Director Schmidt is here tonight if anybody has any questions. That's all I need to say.
Any further discussion on this item? Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
I need to scan both directions. Sorry about
That's
that.
okay. I think anytime we have ordinance changes, it's good to review them. I had never really read through this, and I think it's always important to quantify the problem we're addressing. I had asked for quantifying how many instances, and I don't know if Interim Director Schmidt had forgot he was going to provide that to us in the council, but I didn't see that. Maybe I missed that email. I have concerns on this, and I know there's been talk that maybe the director of future Neenah thought it's fine, but this is adding more regulation to our businesses. I mean, this is requiring an additional annual permit, which is a process. There's no cost, but it's a process. And then also, you know, there's new requirements on the certificate of insurance. You know, and then also there's a component in this ordinance that if they contest the ruling or the however it's delivered to them, that they can appeal that to the Public Service and Safety Committee, which I think is kind of a wonky way to do things, considering our regular people who have a ordinance violation don't get that. They don't get that option. Also, putting this as the community development director as designee, I just think, you know, that's an additional burden. One of the components in this is that sandwich boards there's a component right in there that says they have to be changed weekly. I just think it's a cumbersome ordinance. I don't agree with businesses having to do this because it just seems that we could be channeling our community development energies in much better and more productive ways. Thank you. I'll be voting against this.
Alderman Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. As the sitting member of the Neenah bid group, this request came from me at the bid meeting with the help of the Community Development Department and Future Neenah as a way to help the businesses downtown. We discussed this issue twice. It had been several years since we looked at what the requirements were for putting any type of signage, street signing, in front of the businesses. We had a business earlier last year that put up something very nice and decorative in front of their place of business, but it blocked parking. It also went against ADA. So there were a myriad of issues, as nice as it was, and our bid committee group, along with the merchants and Future Neenah, requested that community development review what the old recommendation was for the betterment of the downtown businesses, and to make sure that we're staying with ADA and that we're creating something that's uniform across the city that will also be aesthetic. From the standpoint of community development overseeing this, they always have. So for the record, this is nothing new to come to that department. This is something they've been doing for 40 years. And what they're doing now is saying, okay, they drafted up with the help of the bid group, with the help of FNI, these new procedures, which the merchants, the bid group, Future Neenah, said we can live with this along with community development. So I thought I would just bring that up as little education, and I highly encourage this council to vote yes tonight.
Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that as of tonight, no businesses downtown have objected to this. And I called Future Neenah, and they were perfectly happy with it. So I don't see any concerns that way. I appreciate cleaning this up and improving the safety and regulating the presentation and look of our downtown. So thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderman Paulno.
Thank you. One last thing. Just for the record, this ordinance was originated in 2010, so it's not that old, the street furniture ordinance. We added sandwich boards to this, and it's just my personal belief. I think history has proven when government taxes and regulates things more, you'll get less of them. So I think it's more cumbersome, so I'll be voting against it.
Alderman Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I really don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care one way or the other. I don't have a business. I don't think the signs bother me if they're wood or plastic. I really don't have a preference. My only concern is that this ordinance is being more fit, if you will, for the downtown district, and it's a city ordinance. So that's where I tend to believe this is more of like a HOA type package for the bid board to be dealing with, not so much the city. So again, I don't have a dog in the fight, so I really don't care. I just want to put my 2 cents in and say, I see it as more of a bid board thing, not the city, and not an ordinance thing with sandwich boards and chairs and all that stuff, but I get it, so.
Mayor, if I might.
Just one comment on that. Just want to clarify that this is in the right of way. This isn't on private property. This is in the city right of way.
I understand that, but we did give those businesses the opportunity to have the outdoor permits to have their business outside on the sidewalk with certain rules. And so with that comes this and more responsibility and more. And we're critiquing the ordinance more and more and more for the downtown area more specifically, rather than, somebody, I don't know, down towards Commercial Street or, you know what I'm saying? Like more.
Yep.
I think, yeah, that's why I thought this would be more of a bid type thing rather than a citywide thing. But, because then it could be handled more sufficiently with the bid and with their leases and with their paperwork and the way they do rent and control and things like that. That's all.
Alderman Ellis?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to go to your point, Councilwoman Boyette, when we requested this, we looked at the entire city. That would be North Commercial Street, South Commercial Street, and West, where there are businesses, because there needs to be uniformity, and for our police to be able to do the proper patrolling, for community development to do the work. This goes beyond Wisconsin Avenue. So this will incorporate businesses today and businesses in future, because there have been some in the past outside of downtown that have put things out there that they shouldn't be there. They're blocking, they're not ADA. So this actually, in my opinion, and that of our group at BID, along with community development, we strongly feel that this is absolutely in the best interest for everybody. This isn't a hindrance. This is a help. Thank you, Mayor.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, not all those in favor, please cast your vote on your voting device.
If you have a voting device.
Yes, yep.
I'll be voting no.
That motion passes 8-1.
And that's the end of my report.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda is the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of March 10th. Chairman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting out from the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of March 10th, 2025. Item number 1, the committee recommends council approve the purchase equipment and services to install a new air conditioning unit in the primary data center at a cost not to exceed $40,000, with funding coming from the Information Systems Capital Equipment Budget, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Erickson, seconded by Alderman Boyette. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. I did check this time.
I'm a yes.
There's no maybe button.
That motion passes 9-0.
Item number 2, the committee recommends council approve the 2024 general fund operating carry forwards to 2025 as submitted, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Erickson,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Paulno. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device.
I'm a yes.
That motion passes 9-0.
Item number 3, the committee recommends council approve ordinance 2025-02, amending Chapter 13, Section 2 of the Special Assessment Ordinance, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Erickson, seconded by Council President Borchert. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Paulno.
Thank you. I've always said that I think we need to spend time to quantify the positives, and this is really wonky in the weeds. A lot of council knows what this is, but basically this is when special street assessments go out to folks, you know, it's if they have to pay for it over 5 years of what the interest they will have to pay. And I just want to give kudos to Director Rasmussen and also Director Kaiser for coming out with a codified process moving forward, because a lot of years, it's amazing when this would come up every year in council, how much discussion there was, and it basically got to where this is. I mean, amazing amounts of discussion, and we get right back to where this is. So I just want to thank you for this, and actually the travel policy, I think, is a very strong step forward, and I want to give you kudos. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
Item number 4, the committee recommends council approve the use of fiscal year 2024 general fund balance surplus in the amount of $191,967.04 to be applied to the following deficits: municipal court for $21,705.91, and the remainder of the parking utility for $170,261.13. And that is a 1.284 surplus, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Erickson. Hang on. There's a motion by Alderman Erickson, and I'm sorry for whoever did not get to second it. Seconded by Alderman Boyette.
All the attention, and I want to.
Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Brian. I just, it was talked in committee, and I think it was a very good idea. The municipal court, just a recommendation to throw money in the budget moving forward. So it seems like we're 20,000. I mean, we're back to where, or we're much better thanks to Director Rasmussen of wiping out that debt. But I would advocate for putting money in the budget moving forward, so we don't always have to make this correction, because it doesn't seem like we're ever really going to be revenue neutral.
Go ahead.
Sure. If I may, what our plan going forward now that we've cleaned up this past 20-year deficit is that every year, so our budget this year, I believe we have a $25,000 deficit budgeted already. So Menasha's already sending us their portion. We're putting our portion in, and then year end is to true it up in case that maybe we went over or under either way. So we're doing that going forward.
And I appreciate that, because every year we get dinged on this in the audit, and now it'd be nice to correct
it's
it.
officially been removed for
Addressed it.
us. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device.
I'm a yes.
That motion passes 9-0.
Item number 5, the committee recommends council approve the updated travel policy, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Erickson. Seconded by Alderman Steiner. Is there any discussion on this item? I am just very appreciative to Director Rasmussen for putting this together as well. We're very fortunate to have her.
Thank you very much. And then I plan to work with all the department heads and admins next week to make sure they're fully trained and I communicate what changed as well.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device.
I'm a yes.
There we go.
That motion passes 9-0.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. There is no additional report from the Plan Commission. So moving on to the Board of Public Works meeting of March 18th, Vice Chairman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. The minutes from this meeting can be found on the city website. There are 4 council action items this evening. Item A, Board recommends council award contract 3-25, utilities and street construction on Caroline Street and Hickory Lane to David Tenner Corporation in the amount of $808,444.20, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Lundrum. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
Item B, Board recommends council award contract 8-25, city services roof repair, fleet area and alternate bid park shop area to JT Rams LLC in the amount of $91,549, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Lundrum. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
Item C, board recommends council approve final payment number 9, contract 1-24, utilities and street construction on Belmont Avenue, Belmont Court, Cedar Street, and Stevens Street to David Tenner Corporation in the amount of $366,480.90, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Lundrum. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
Item D, and the last item this evening, board recommends council authorize the Neenah Police Department to contract with Bayland Buildings for a storage shed at a cost not to exceed $331,365 to be funded with the remaining building addition project funds of $214,162 and $117,203 from the facilities fund balance, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you for your report. Next item on the agenda, reports from the neighborhood groups, the Business Improvement District Board. Alderman Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. One point of interest for those of you who like the lights program that goes on downtown. Yeah, that's very cool. I'm happy to announce that the Fox Cities Convention and Visitor Bureau has awarded a tourism development grant to help fund the video production installation for future Neenah. The grant funds were from the acquisition and the installation of video equipment and programming. So that's something that's going to continue in Neenah, and we're very grateful to the Tourism Bureau for that grant. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for your report. The Library Board, Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neenah Public Library Board of Trustees met today at 4 p.m. I'd like to report on some upcoming events at the library. Tomorrow night, there is a history presentation from the Neenah Historical Society. It's called Growing Up Neenah, and people have submitted many of their memories of growing up in Neenah, and that is at 6:30. There will be a movie talk on March 25th at 6:30, and the movie is Oppenheimer. There is a Jimmy Buffett Jam on 3/29 at 1 p.m. A Sunday concert with Aaron Krebs Trio at 2 p.m., and a lot of other programming that is available. So if you are interested, please look at the Neenah Public Library website, and always remember to check out some books. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. A report from the Landmarks Commission, Alderman Weber.
Thank you, Mayor. The Landmarks Commission did meet on March 12th. The minutes will be posted on the city website. The main activity has been completing the updated list of the properties that we want to now provide to the consultant who will pull together some updated brochure ideas for us. So that'll be the next step in that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Any petitions? Are there any council directives? Alderman Ellis?
Thank you. I have one, and this goes back to our housing thing that we had earlier today. And I'm thinking, I'm talking out loud to the group here, but perhaps Public Works Committee would like to take a look at this. Oftentimes, when we have noxious weed ordinances, or we have homes or apartments that are really looking awful, we respond, but we respond based upon complaint. And I think trying to align with a horse being put in front of the cart, perhaps, and this is where I leave it to the discretion of the committee of the conversation, that perhaps our police department, surprise, surprise, Chief, and our street and sanitation groups, just as two for instances, while they're doing their due diligence driving around the city, if they happen to note that they believe, they don't have to know for a fact, but like, I think this is noxious weeds, I think this house or something really bad, that they would jot that down and turn that information over to our city inspector so they could take a look at it and make the real judgment call. That may also help neighborhoods become more better enhanced if we get in front of it versus behind it. So from that standpoint, I would request that Alderman Lippman's group take a look at that and come back to us when she has conversations with the various department heads.
Can I speak?
Alderman Lendrum?
It's a great idea, and we'll try to come up with something. I know exactly what you're talking about, so thank you.
Are you intending to make it a council directive specifically, or just put
I
it
think
on
at this
an
time I would
agenda?
prefer to just to refer to committee.
Okay,
And I didn't know if this was the proper place, Mayor, to do that.
okay.
But I think the directive or whatever we might come up with would probably come from the committee.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other council directive possibilities? Seeing none, is there any unfinished business? Alderman Paul, no.
Thank you. I just had a question for Director Kaiser, as I had got an email a couple days ago, and I pulled you and Chief Olson into it. It was in regarding to traffic, and Chief Olson was on it, handled it. My question being, my usual go-to was Traffic Engineer Merton, and he hasn't been with the city for, I think, 3 months now. So my question is, and you had mentioned that there was kind of a work in progress with Director Fairchild on the succession plan. I was wondering, do you have an update for that or a timeline? Because it was kind of nice just to be able to send that to James Merton, to be honest with you. And I was just wondering what the plan is, if there is one.
Feel free to send those to me. Director Fairchild and I have had some discussions, and I've laid out a possible reorganization as I've considered it and discussed it with staff. We will be advertising for an engineer shortly, and more or less keeping the structure that we have right now.
Yeah, that's the perfect time to do it, to evaluate things. I just didn't know what the scoop was going to be.
Yeah, so that we just have to review the description and the ad and get that out.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Weber?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we've had some various discussions about having a Carpenter Preserve presentation to the council. I'd like to formally request, if possible, we do that at the April 2nd council meeting, confirmed with Director Kading that he will be ready, and I know he's working on the updates to the maps with Grafe, et cetera. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other unfinished business? Any new business? Seeing none, the next item on our agenda is a closed session. The council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, parent 1, parent C, for the purposes of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility relating to the community development director position. So we are moving into closed session.
Mayor, could we take a 5-minute break?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Is there a motion? We had the motion by Council President Borchert, seconded by Alderman Ellis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We can take a 5-minute break before.
The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.